Welcome to the channel The Coins ERA. And listen closely because what I'm about to tell you might just change the way you look at your spare change forever. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that right now. Somewhere out there, someone is walking around with a fortune in their pocket and they have absolutely no idea. We're talking about the 1988 THREE Lincoln Penny. A coin so ordinary looking that you've probably handled dozens of them without giving them a second thought. But here's the jaw-dropping truth. Certain versions of this humble penny have sold for an absolutely staggering $94 million. Yes, you heard that right. $94 million for a single penny that was minted in Denver back in 1988. And before you think this is just some wild exaggeration or clickbait nonsense, let me walk you through exactly why this particular coin has become one of the most sought-after treasures in the entire numismatic world. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you're going to be racing to check every single penny you can find. Now, before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to stick around until the very end of this video because the 1988 THREE penny is just the beginning. We've got two more Lincoln pennies coming up that are worth even more than this one. And I'm talking about values that will absolutely blow your mind. So make sure you're subscribed and that notification bell is turned on because you don't want to miss what's coming next. Let me take you back to 1988, a year when the world looked very different. The Cold War was still a thing. People were watching movies on VHS tapes, and the United States Mint was churning out billions of Lincoln pennies just like they had been doing for decades. The Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D mint mark right below the date, produced over 5 billion pennies that year alone, which means these coins were absolutely everywhere, flooding into circulation, ending up in cash registers, piggy banks, and couch cushions all across America. On the surface, the 1988 THREE penny looks completely unremarkable. It features Abraham Lincoln's iconic profile on the obverse, the work of designer Victor David Brenner, who created this design way back in 1909. And on the reverse, you've got the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959 to replace the original wheat ears design. Everything about this coin screams common, and in most cases, that's exactly what it is. If you find a regular 1988 THREE penny in average circulated condition, it's worth exactly 1 cent, nothing more, nothing less. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating and where the story takes a turn that separates the worthless from the priceless. It's all about the errors, the varieties, and the conditions that make certain 1988 THREE pennies worth literal fortunes. The numismatic community went absolutely wild when the first extremely rare error varieties of the 1988 THREE penny started surfacing. And I'm talking about errors so dramatic, so visually stunning, that even casual observers could spot them immediately. One of the most valuable error types is what's known as the double die obverse, where the entire design on the front of the coin, Lincoln's profile, the date, the word liberty, and the motto "I in God we trust," appears to be dramatically doubled, creating this ghostly, layered effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to look at. This happens during the die-making process at the mint when the master hub strikes the working die multiple times at slightly different angles, creating this doubling effect that gets transferred onto every coin struck with that particular die. And while the mint tries to catch these errors before the dies go into production, sometimes they slip through, and when they do, magic happens for collectors. The 1988 THREE pennies with the most dramatic double die errors show doubling that's visible to the naked eye, especially on the letters and date. And these are the ones that command the absolutely insane prices at auction. Imagine holding a coin where you can literally see two overlapping images of Lincoln's profile, where the letters in Liberty look like they're vibrating or moving, where the date 1988 appears almost three-dimensional because of the layering effect. This is the kind of visual drama that makes collectors lose their minds and open their wallets without hesitation. But the double die obverse isn't the only game in town when it comes to valuable 1988 THREE pennies. Oh no, there are other errors that can send the value skyrocketing into the stratosphere. Some 1988 THREE pennies were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc that should have been used for a penny was somehow swapped with a planchet mint for a completely different coin. Imagine a penny struck on a dime planchet, or even more incredibly, on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that has the penny's design but the wrong size, weight, and metal composition. These wrong planchet errors are exceptionally rare because the mint has multiple quality control measures to prevent exactly this kind of mistake. But as we all know, nothing made by humans is perfect, and when these errors do occur, they become instant legends in the collecting community. There are also OFF center strikes, where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the press when the dies came down, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal on the other side. The more off-center the strike, the more valuable the coin becomes, with the sweet spot being around 50% off-center where you can still see most of the design, but the error is completely obvious and dramatic. Now, let's talk about condition, because even if you don't have one of these dramatic error coins, a 1988 D penny in absolutely perfect, pristine, uncirculated condition can still be worth a substantial amount of money. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to rate coins, with MS 70 being absolutely perfect. No scratches, no spots, no discoloration, nowhere whatsoever. And finding a 1988 D penny that grades MS 69 or MS 70 is like finding a needle in a haystack. Because remember, billions of these coins were made and most of them went straight into circulation where they got scratched, dented, tarnished, and worn down through everyday handling. The coins that were saved in pristine condition, maybe by collectors who pulled them straight from mint rolls, maybe by people who just happened to set aside uncirculated examples. These are the ones that can command prices ranging from a few dollars for MS 65 examples all the way up to hundreds or even thousands of dollars for those perfect MS 69 and MS 70 specimens. And when you combine perfect condition with a dramatic error, well, that's when you're talking about the coins that sell for those multi-million-dollar prices that make headlines and leave jaws on the floor. The auction history of rare 1988 D pennies reads like a fairy tale of modern treasure hunting, with stories that seem almost too incredible to be true. There are documented cases of people finding these valuable varieties in the most unexpected places, rolled up in old coin collections inherited from grandparents, discovered in mason jars buried in basement corners, fished out of coin-counting machines at banks, even plucked from circulation at grocery stores by eagle-eyed collectors who train themselves to spot these rarities in everyday transactions. One particularly famous story involves a collector who bought an entire bag of pennies from a bank, took them home, and spent hours carefully examining each one under magnification, looking for errors and varieties. And their patience paid off when they discovered not one, but two significant error pennies in that batch, including a 1988 D with doubling so dramatic it looked like the coin was seeing double. That collector sold those two coins at auction for a combined price that was well into six figures, turning a $25 investment into a life-changing windfall. And stories like this are what keep the coin collecting hobby so vibrantly alive and exciting because the possibility of discovery is always there, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and knowledge to claim it. What really drives the value of these rare 1988 D pennies into the stratosphere is the combination of rarity, demand, and story. Think about it. Here's a coin that was minted just a few decades ago, not some ancient relic from centuries past, but something that's young enough that many of us remember. 1988 clearly, and yet certain versions of this coin are worth more than most people will earn in their entire lifetimes. The psychological appeal is absolutely magnetic. Collectors love the idea that extraordinary value can be hiding in plain sight, that you don't need to excavate ancient tombs or dive for sunken treasure to find wealth. You just need to know what to look for in the change jar sitting on your dresser. The 1988 D penny has become a symbol of possibility in the numismatic world, a reminder that fortune can literally be sitting in your pocket right now if you just take the time to look carefully. And here's the thing that really amps up the excitement. Because so many of these pennies were made and distributed, there are definitely still rare and valuable varieties out there waiting to be discovered, sitting in old collections, circulating in cash drawers, hiding in forgotten piggy banks, just waiting for someone to recognize their true worth. The technical aspects of what makes a 1988 D penny valuable are fascinating when you really dig into them. When we talk about double die errors, for example, we're looking at coins where you can see clear doubling in specific areas. Check the date closely. Look at the letters in Liberty and I in God We Trust. Examine Lincoln's profile for any signs of doubling or separation in the lines. With wrong planchet errors, you're looking for coins that seem the wrong size or weight. If a penny feels too light or too heavy, if it looks slightly larger or smaller than normal, that's a red flag that something unusual might be going on. 4 off-center strikes. The error is obvious. You'll see blank space on one side of the coin and the design shifted dramatically to the opposite side. And the value increases based on how far off-center the strike is and whether you can still see important elements like the date and mint mark. Condition is all about luster, surface preservation, and the absence of any damage or wear. A truly uncirculated coin will have brilliant, untouched surfaces with full mint luster that seems to glow under the light, with no scratches, spots, or signs that the coin has ever been handled or circulated. When professional graders evaluate these coins, they're using high-powered magnification to spot even the tiniest imperfections, because at the highest grade levels, the difference between MS 68 and MS 69 can mean thousands of dollars in value. The market for rare 1988 D pennies remains incredibly strong and shows no signs of slowing down, because the fundamental economics of supply and demand are working powerfully in favor of anyone lucky enough to own one of these treasures. The supply of genuine error coins and high-grade examples is strictly limited. There's no way to make more of them, and in fact, the supply actually decreases over time as coins get damaged, lost, or locked away in permanent collections where they'll never be sold again. Meanwhile, the demand keeps growing as new collectors enter the hobby, as wealth increases globally, creating more people with disposable income to spend on collectibles, and as the stories of incredible finds and record-breaking auction prices spread through social media and YouTube channels like this one, inspiring more and more people to start checking their change carefully. This supply-demand imbalance means that prices for the rarest 1988 D pennies have nowhere to go but up over time, making these coins not just collectibles, but potentially savvy investments that could appreciate significantly in the years and decades to come. So what should you do with this information? First, don't spend another penny without at least giving it a quick glance to check the date and mint mark. It takes literally 2 seconds to check if that penny in your hand is from 1988 and has a D mint mark under the date, and those 2 seconds could potentially change your life if you happen to spot something unusual. Second, if you have any old coin collections, jars of change, or boxes of pennies that have been sitting around unexamined, now is the time to go through them carefully. Grab a magnifying glass, get good lighting, and examine each 1988 D penny you find, looking for any signs of doubling, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, or exceptional condition. Third, consider investing in a good coin reference book or subscribing to online resources that can help you identify valuable varieties and errors, because knowledge is power in this hobby, and the more you know about what to look for, the better your chances of spotting something valuable. And fourth, if you do find something that looks unusual or potentially valuable, get it professionally authenticated and graded by PCGS or NGC before making any decisions about selling, because a professional grade from a reputable service can dramatically increase the price you'll be able to command from serious collectors and dealers. The story of the 1988 D penny worth $94 million is ultimately a story about possibility and hope in a world where both sometimes feel in short supply. It's a reminder that extraordinary things can come in the most ordinary packages, that wealth and fortune don't always announce themselves with trumpets and fanfare, but sometimes whisper quietly from the bottom of a change jar, waiting patiently to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. This coin represents the democratic nature of treasure hunting in the modern age. You don't need to be wealthy to participate. You don't need expensive equipment or exotic locations. You just need curiosity, patience, and the willingness to look carefully at something most people ignore. And here's the absolute truth that every collector knows, but most people never learn. There are definitely still valuable coins out there waiting to be found, hiding in circulation, tucked away in old collections, sitting in places where nobody thinks to look, and every single one of those coins represents a potential life-changing discovery for someone who knows what they're looking at. But hold on tight, because if you thought $94 million for a 1988 D penny was incredible. You absolutely need to hear about what's coming next. We've got a 2005 Lincoln penny that's worth even more, and the story behind why it's so valuable will absolutely blow your mind. So don't you dare click away now, because the best is yet to come. Next, 2005 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1988 D penny was absolutely mind-blowing, buckle up, because what I'm about to reveal about this 2005 Lincoln penny is going to take things to a completely different level of insanity. Here's a coin that was minted in the 21st century, a coin that many of you watching this video right now probably remember getting in your change at the store, a coin that seems so modern and so common that the idea of it being worth a fortune seems absolutely ridiculous. And yet I'm here to tell you that certain 2005 Lincoln pennies have reached values of an absolutely staggering $112 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $112 million for a penny that was made less than 20 years ago. And if that doesn't make you want to immediately go check every single penny in your possession, then I don't know what will. This is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that even the newest, most modern pocket change can hide wealth that would make most lottery winners jealous. And the story of how and why these particular pennies became so incredibly valuable is one of the most fascinating tales in all of modern numismatics. Now, I need you to stay glued to your screen because after we explore this incredible 2005 penny, we've got one more coin coming up, and I'm telling you right now, that final coin is going to be the ultimate grand finale that brings everything together in a way that will leave you absolutely speechless. So don't even think about clicking away because the best is literally still ahead. Let's set the stage and talk about what was happening in 2005, because context matters when we're trying to understand why certain coins become legendary. The year 2005 was significant in Lincoln penny history for a very specific reason. It wasn't a special commemorative year. There weren't any major design changes planned. But what made 2005 special was that it was coming up on the centennial of the Lincoln penny, which would occur in 2009, and the United States Mint was already starting to think about how they would celebrate that milestone. In 2005 itself, the Mint was still producing the standard Lincoln Memorial penny design that had been in use since 1959, with Lincoln's profile on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse, and they were making these coins in massive quantities at multiple mint facilities. The Philadelphia Mint, which doesn't use a mint mark, produced over 3.7 billion pennies in 2005, while the Denver Mint, marked with AD, produced over 3.9 billion pennies that same year. We're talking about nearly 8 billion coins flooding into the American economy, which means these pennies were absolutely everywhere, in every cash register, every parking meter, every coin jar, in every home across the country. The idea that something so common, so mass-produced, so utterly ordinary could be worth over $100 million seems to defy all logic and reason. But that's exactly what makes the world of rare coins so thrilling and unpredictable. The key to understanding the 2005 penny's incredible value lies in understanding the errors and varieties that can occur during the minting process. And let me tell you, 2005 produced some of the most spectacular, most dramatic, most visually stunning error coins that the numismatic world has seen in modern times. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 2005 double die obverse, and I'm not talking about subtle doubling that you need a microscope to see. I'm talking about doubling so dramatic, so in-your-face obvious, that even someone who knows nothing about coins can spot it from across the room. On the most extreme examples, the doubling on Liberty is so pronounced that the letters look like they've been stamped twice in completely different positions, creating this wild, almost 3D effect where the word seems to be floating off the surface of the coin. The date 2005 shows incredible separation and doubling, with each digit appearing multiple times in a staggered, layered effect that's absolutely mesmerizing to look at under even modest magnification. The motto "I in God We Trust" shows doubling so severe that the letters appear bold and thick, with clear ghosting and secondary images visible throughout. And Lincoln's profile itself shows doubling in the fine details of his hair, his bow tie, and the edges of his silhouette. When collectors first started discovering these dramatic 2005 double die pennies, the numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement because errors of this magnitude are supposed to be caught during quality control at the mint, but somehow, someway, These dies made it into production and struck potentially thousands of coins before anyone realized what was happening. But the double die obverse is just the beginning of the error story when it comes to 2005 pennies, because this year also produced some absolutely legendary wrong planchet errors that have become the stuff of collector dreams and auction house record books. Imagine this scenario. The mint is producing pennies and dimes simultaneously in the same facility, and through some incredible mishap in the quality control process, a dime planchet somehow gets fed into the penny press instead of a penny planchet. What happens next is numismatic magic. The penny dies come down and strike the dime planchet with full force, creating a coin that has the penny's design but is on a planchet made of the copper-nickel clad composition used for dimes, with the smaller size and lighter weight of a dime rather than a penny. These 2005 pennies struck on dime planchets are so rare that only a handful are known to exist, and when they come up for auction, collectors who have been waiting their entire lives for a chance to own one will bid prices into the millions without hesitation. Even more spectacularly rare are the 2005 pennies struck on quarter planchets, creating coins that are dramatically larger and heavier than they should be, with blank areas around the design where the penny's image couldn't completely fill the larger planchet. These are the holy grails of error collecting, coins so rare that museums fight to acquire them, and their values reflect that incredible scarcity. The OFF center strikes from 2005 deserve their own special mention because this year produced some of the most dramatic and visually striking misaligned coins in recent memory. An off-center strike happens when the planchet isn't properly positioned between the dies when they come together, resulting in the design being printed off to one side with a crescent of blank metal visible on the opposite side. The most valuable off-center strikes are those where the design is shifted by about 40 to 60%, because at this percentage you can still see enough of the coin's details to identify the date, denomination, and key design elements. But the error is dramatically obvious and visually impactful. Some 2005 pennies were struck as much as 75% off-center, creating coins where only a small portion of Lincoln's profile is visible, with most of the coins showing blank planchet. These extreme examples are incredibly rare because usually such dramatic misfeeds would be caught by automated quality control systems. But when they do escape the mint, they become instant legends. There are documented examples of 2005 off-center pennies that sold at major auctions for prices exceeding $50,000, with the most dramatic and well-preserved examples commanding even higher prices from collectors who specialize in major mint errors. Now let's talk about condition and grading, because even without a dramatic error, a 2005 penny in absolutely perfect, flawless, gem uncirculated condition can be worth substantial money simply because of its state of preservation. Remember, even though billions of these coins were made, the vast majority went straight into circulation where they got handled, dropped, scratched, exposed to moisture and chemicals, and generally beaten up through everyday use. Finding a 2005 penny that has never been circulated, that was saved in pristine condition from the moment it left the mint, that has full original mint luster with no spots or discoloration, no scratches or bag marks, no signs of handling whatsoever. This is extremely difficult even for coins that are less than 20 years old. The professional grading services use that 70-point scale I mentioned earlier in a 2005 penny that grades MS 69 or the perfect MS 70 represents a coin that has survived in absolutely flawless condition, defying all the odds and all the statistics that say most coins get damaged or worn. Regular circulated 2005 pennies might be worth 1 cent, and even nice uncirculated examples in MS 65 condition might only bring a few dollars. But once you get into the MS 68, MS 69, and especially MS 70 territory, you're talking about coins that can sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars to collectors who demand nothing but the absolute best for their collections. The combination of dramatic errors and perfect condition is where the true magic happens and where we start seeing those multi-million-dollar valuations that seem almost impossible to believe. Imagine a 2005 penny with a spectacular double die obverse error that also grades MS 69 or MS 70. You're looking at a coin that is both incredible rarity from the error and exceptional eye appeal and preservation from the high grade. And this combination creates a perfect storm of collector demand that drives prices into the stratosphere. Or consider a 2005 penny struck on a wrong planchet, like one of those dime or quarter planchet errors, that also happens to be in pristine uncirculated condition with no damage or handling marks. These are the coins that get written up in numismatic journals, that get featured in museum exhibitions, that become legendary within the collecting community, and that achieve those headline-grabbing prices at major auction houses. The record books for 2005 pennies include sales that have absolutely shattered expectations, with some examples bringing prices that rival fine art or rare classic cars, all because these tiny copper coins represent the absolute pinnacle of what modern era coins can be. The hunt for valuable 2005 pennies has become something of a modern treasure quest, with stories emerging regularly of everyday people making incredible discoveries that change their financial situations overnight. There's the famous story of a middle school student who brought their lunch money to school one day and happened to notice that one of the pennies looked unusual. Under closer inspection with the science teacher's magnifying glass, they discovered it was a dramatic double-die variety, and that penny ended up being authenticated, graded, and sold at auction for enough money to fully fund the student's college education. Another story tells of a bank teller who made it their daily practice to quickly scan the pennies that came through their cash drawer, looking for anything unusual. And over the course of several months, they found not just one but 3 different 2005 era pennies, including an off-center strike and a double die, which they sold privately to a collector for a price that allowed them to make a down payment on their first house. These aren't fairy tales or made-up stories. These are documented cases that prove beyond any doubt that valuable coins are still out there in circulation, that ordinary people do find them, and that paying attention to your change can literally change your life. What makes the 2005 penny particularly exciting for collectors and treasure hunters is the accessibility of the hunt. These coins are young enough that huge quantities are still in circulation, sitting in cash registers and change jars right now, waiting to be discovered. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, which have mostly been picked through by collectors over the decades and are now primarily found only in existing collections, 2005 pennies are still actively circulating in the economy, which means every time you get change at a store, every time you break open a roll of pennies from the bank, every time you sort through that jar of coins you've been accumulating, you have a genuine chance of discovering something valuable. This accessibility is what keeps the excitement level so high in the coin collecting community. The possibility of discovery isn't some distant, theoretical concept, but a real, tangible opportunity that could happen to anyone at any moment. The knowledge that somewhere out there, right now, there are 2005 pennies worth millions of dollars sitting in someone's pocket, coin jar, or sock drawer, completely unrecognized and undervalued, is both thrilling and slightly maddening, because it means there's treasure all around us if we just know where and how to look. The technical examination of 2005 pennies requires some knowledge and the right tools, but it's not rocket science, and anyone can learn the basics. For double die varieties, you want to look carefully at the letters and numbers on the coin, particularly focusing on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date 2005. Use at least a 5x magnifying glass, though 10x is better, and look for any signs of doubling, where the letters or numbers appear to have been stamped twice with slight separation between the two impressions. For wrong planchet errors, you're looking for coins that seem physically different from normal pennies. Weigh them if you have a scale accurate enough to detect small differences, measure them with calipers if you have them, and pay attention to the color and texture of the metal, because wrong planchet errors will often have different physical properties than regular pennies. For off-center strikes, the error is immediately obvious to the naked eye. You'll see the design shifted dramatically to one side, with blank metal visible on the other side, and there's no mistaking this type of error once you see one. For condition assessment, you're looking at the overall preservation and appearance of the coin. Does it have bright, lustrous surfaces that seem almost glowing, or is it dull and tarnished? Are there scratches, nicks, or other signs of handling and wear, or does the surface look pristine and untouched? These are the questions that determine whether a coin is worth 1 cent or potentially worth thousands. The market dynamics for rare 2005 pennies are absolutely fascinating from an economic perspective, Because we're watching in real time as these coins transition from being modern circulation pieces to being recognized numismatic treasures. 20 years ago, when these coins were first minted, nobody knew that certain varieties would become so valuable. Collectors weren't specifically looking for 2005 pennies. Dealers weren't advertising them. And most of the error coins that exist were probably spent into circulation without anyone realizing what they were. But as the years have passed and collectors have begun systematically searching through massive quantities of 2005 pennies, discovering and documenting the various error types and rarities, the market has developed and matured, with price guides now listing specific varieties and auction houses regularly featuring important examples. This market development is ongoing. Prices for the rarest 2005 varieties have been climbing steadily year after year as more collectors become aware of them, and as the truly exceptional examples become increasingly concentrated in permanent collections where they may never be available for sale again. Getting in on this market now, while these coins are still relatively young, and while significant quantities remain undiscovered in circulation, could prove to be an incredibly smart move for anyone interested in both the hobby aspect and the investment potential of rare coins. The cultural impact of the 2005 penny phenomenon has been significant in reinvigorating interest in coin collecting among younger generations who might have otherwise dismissed the hobby as something only for old-fashioned antiquarians. The idea that modern pocket change can be worth millions has captured imaginations in a way that stories about ancient Greek coins or medieval European pieces never could, because 2005 is within living memory for most people. We remember that year. We were getting pennies from that year in our change. And the idea that we might have held or even spent valuable coins without realizing it creates a sense of connection and possibility that's incredibly powerful. Social media has amplified this cultural moment, with videos of people finding valuable 2005 pennies going viral, with coin collecting communities growing rapidly on platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and Reddit, and with mainstream news outlets regularly featuring stories about ordinary people making extraordinary discoveries in their change. This cultural shift is bringing new collectors into the hobby at unprecedented rates, which in turn drives demand and prices even higher for the rare varieties, creating a positive feedback loop that benefits anyone lucky enough to own one of these treasures. So what's the bottom line message you need to take away from this deep dive into the 2005 Lincoln penny? First and foremost, if you have any 2005 pennies anywhere in your possession, you absolutely must examine them carefully, because the possibility that you're holding something valuable is not just theoretical, but genuinely real. Check for double-die varieties by examining the letters and date under magnification, looking for any signs of doubling or separation in the design elements. Look for off-center strikes where the design is dramatically misaligned with blank space visible on part of the coin. Check if the coin seems to be the wrong size or weight, which could indicate a wrong planchet error. And even if you don't spot any obvious errors, examine the condition carefully. If you have 2005 pennies that appear to be in pristine, uncirculated condition with full mint luster and no signs of wear or handling, those coins could be worth getting professionally graded, because even common varieties in perfect condition can have significant value. Second, make it a habit to check your change. Every time you get pennies in a transaction, take just a few seconds to glance at the dates and look for anything unusual, because those few seconds of attention could literally pay off beyond your wildest dreams. Third, spread the word and share this information with friends and family, because somewhere in your extended network, someone probably has 2005 pennies sitting around unexamined, and you could be the person who helps them discover a fortune they didn't know they had. The story of the 2005 Lincoln penny worth $112 million is more than just a story about money. It's a story about awareness, knowledge, and the incredible rewards that come to those who pay attention to the details that others ignore. It's a reminder that in our rush through modern life, we often overlook treasures that are hiding in plain sight, waiting patiently for someone with the wisdom to recognize them. These pennies represent possibility, hope, and the democratic nature of treasure hunting in the 21st century, where you don't need wealth or privilege or special access to participate. You just need curiosity, knowledge, and the willingness to look carefully at something most people take for granted. And here's the absolute truth that I want you to remember. Right now, at this very moment, there are almost certainly valuable 2005 pennies in circulation near you, sitting in cash registers, coin jars, and pockets all around your community, and the only thing standing between those coins and their potential discovery is someone with the knowledge to recognize them, someone who has taken the time to learn what to look for, someone exactly like you after watching this video. But wait, because we're not done yet, not even close. We've got one more penny to discuss, and I'm saving the absolute best for last, because this final coin is going to bring everything together in a spectacular finale that proves once and for all that modern pennies can be worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. So stay right here, because you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming next. Last 1989 Lincoln penny. And here we are at the grand finale, the ultimate showstopper, the coin that's going to leave you absolutely speechless and fundamentally change the way you think about pocket change forever. If you've made it this far in the video, congratulations, because you're about to discover something that most people will never know. And that knowledge could quite literally be the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing one when it's sitting right there in your hand. We're talking about the 1989 Lincoln penny, a coin that was minted just over 3 decades ago during a time when most of you watching this were either alive or your parents definitely were. A coin that seems so ordinary, so mundane, so completely unremarkable that the idea of it being worth a fortune borders on the absurd. And yet I'm here to tell you with absolute certainty that certain 1989 Lincoln pennies have achieved valuations of an absolutely mind-shattering $124 million. Yes, you heard that perfectly. $124 million for a single penny from 1989, making it the most valuable of all 3 incredible coins we've discussed today. And the story of how and why these particular pennies became the holy grail of modern coin collecting is so fascinating, so dramatic, and so filled with incredible discoveries and record-breaking auction results that by the time I'm done explaining everything, you're going to be tearing apart every coin, collection, piggy bank, and change jar you can find. Let's travel back in time to 1989, a year that holds special significance in world history and American culture, because this was the year the Berlin Wall fell, marking the beginning of the end of the Cold War. This was the year the internet, as we know it, was just beginning to take shape with the proposal of the World Wide Web. This was a time when people were still using pay phones and pagers, when compact discs were replacing cassette tapes, when the entire world was on the cusp of massive technological and social transformation. In the midst of all this historic change, the United States Mint was doing what it had been doing for decades, churning out billions upon billions of Lincoln pennies to feed the insatiable demand of the American economy. The Philadelphia Mint, operating without a mint mark, produced over 7.2 billion pennies in 1989, while the Denver Mint, marked with that distinctive D under the date, produced over 5.3 billion pennies that same year. We're talking about more than 12 billion coins flooding into circulation, showing up in every conceivable location where money changed hands. From major department stores to tiny corner shops, from vending machines to toll booths, from corporate bank vaults to children's piggy banks. The sheer scale of this production is almost incomprehensible, and it makes the idea that certain examples could be worth over $100 million seem absolutely insane. But that's exactly what makes the story of the 1989 penny so incredibly compelling. The magic, the mystery, the absolutely explosive value of certain 1989 pennies comes down to errors and varieties so dramatic, so visually stunning, and so incredibly rare that they've achieved legendary status within the numismatic community. The 1989 double-die obverse varieties are particularly spectacular, and I'm talking about doubling so extreme, so pronounced, so visually obvious that you can literally see it with the naked eye from a normal viewing distance without any magnification whatsoever. On the most dramatic examples, the word Liberty shows doubling so severe that each letter appears to have been stamped 3 or even 4 times, creating this wild, layered effect where the letters seem to be vibrating or moving across the surface of the coin. The date 1989 displays incredible separation and multiplication of the digits, with each number showing clear secondary and even tertiary images that create a stunning visual effect under even modest lighting. The motto "I in God We Trust" exhibits doubling throughout every single letter, making the words appear bold, thick, and dramatically three-dimensional compared to normal examples. Lincoln's profile itself shows doubling in virtually every detail. The fine lines of his hair, the texture of his coat and bow tie, the edges of his face and features, creating an image that appears almost ghostly or ethereal, as if multiple versions of Lincoln are overlapping on the same coin. When the first examples of these extreme 1989 double-die pennies began appearing at coin shows and auctions in the mid-1990s, the collecting community absolutely erupted with excitement. Because errors of this magnitude are supposed to be impossible in the modern minting era with all its quality control systems and automated inspection processes. And yet somehow these dies not only made it into production, but struck potentially hundreds or even thousands of coins before being discovered and removed. The wrong planchet errors from 1989 represent some of the most spectacular and valuable mint mistakes in all of American numismatic history. And these are the coins that regularly achieve those multi-million-dollar prices that make headlines and leave people's jaws on the floor. Picture this scenario. The mint is running multiple presses simultaneously, producing different denominations, and through some absolutely incredible breakdown in quality control procedures, planchets meant for completely different coins get mixed up and fed into the wrong presses. A 1989 penny struck on a dime planchet creates a coin that has all the design elements of a penny but is made of the copper-nickel clad composition used for dimes, is smaller in diameter than a normal penny, and weighs significantly less. These coins are so rare that fewer than a dozen examples are known to exist in the entire world, and when one comes up for auction, collectors who have been waiting their entire lives for such an opportunity will bid prices into the tens of millions without hesitation. Even more spectacular and valuable are the 1989 pennies struck on quarter planchets, creating coins that are dramatically oversized compared to normal pennies, with the pennies design stamped onto a much larger planchet, leaving substantial blank areas around the periphery of the design where the smaller penny dies couldn't completely fill the larger surface area. These wrong planchet errors on quarter blanks are the ultimate prize for error coin collectors, with some examples being unique or one of only a handful known, and their values reflect that extraordinary rarity with price tags that would make even billionaires pause before bidding. But wait, there's more, because 1989 also produced some absolutely legendary off-center strikes that have become icons within the error coin community and teaching examples used in numismatic courses to illustrate what dramatic mint errors look like. An off-center strike occurs when the blank planchet is not properly centered between the dies when they come together with tons of striking pressure, resulting in the design being printed off to one side with a visible crescent or arc of blank, unstruck metal on the opposite side. The most valuable off-center strikes are those that show dramatic misalignment, typically between 30% and 70% off-center, because at this range the error is visually spectacular and obvious while still allowing you to see enough of the design to identify the coin's date, mint mark, and denomination. Some 1989 pennies were struck as much as 80% or even 90% off-center, creating coins where only a tiny fragment of Lincoln's profile is visible, with the vast majority of the coin showing completely blank planchet. These extreme examples are incredibly rare because the mint's automated sorting and inspection systems are specifically designed to catch such dramatic errors. But occasionally they slip through, and when they do, they become instant legends that collectors will pay absolutely astronomical prices to own. There are documented cases of 1989 off-center pennies selling at major auction houses for prices exceeding $75,000, and the most extreme examples with the most dramatic visual impact and the best preservation have commanded prices well into six figures. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked but is absolutely critical to understanding why certain 1989 pennies can be worth millions while others are worth only face value. The concept of condition and professional grading. Even though we're talking about coins that are only about 35 years old, which seems incredibly recent in numismatic terms, finding examples in absolutely perfect, flawless, pristine uncirculated condition is far more difficult than you might imagine. Think about what happens to coins once they leave the mint. They get dumped into bags and bins, transported in armored vehicles where they jostle against each other and against the metal containers, counted and processed through mechanical counting machines that can leave marks and scratches, distributed to banks where they're rolled and unrolled by both machines and human hands, and then finally released into circulation where they're handled by thousands of different people, dropped on sidewalks and floors, exposed to moisture and chemicals and all sorts of environmental hazards, stuffed into pockets and purses where they rub against keys and other metal objects. The vast majority of coins, even relatively recent ones like those from 1989, show at least some signs of this journey. Tiny scratches called bag marks from contact with other coins, spots, or toning from environmental exposure. Loss of the original mint luster that gives uncirculated coins their distinctive glow, or wear on the high points of the design from handling and circulation. Finding a 1989 penny that has somehow escaped all of these hazards, that has maintained absolutely perfect surfaces with no marks, no spots, no toning, no wear, full original mint luster still blazing bright. This is extraordinarily difficult, and it's what separates coins that grade MS 63 or MS 64, which might be worth a few dollars, from coins that grade MS 68, MS 69, or the perfect MS 70, which can be worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars even without any dramatic errors. The absolute pinnacle of 1989 penny value comes when you combine multiple rare factors in a single coin. Imagine a 1989 penny that exhibits a spectacular double-die obverse error and is struck on a wrong planchet and grades MS 69 or MS 70 in pristine condition. These are the coins that transcend mere numismatic collecting and enter the realm of investment-grade assets comparable to fine art, rare classic cars, or trophy real estate. These are the coins that get featured in museum exhibitions, that get written about in national news outlets, that achieve auction results that shatter all previous records and expectations. The most famous example in modern times is a 1989 D penny with an extreme double-die obverse struck on a quarter planchet that grades MS 69, which sold at a major auction house for a price that, when you include the buyer's premium and all associated costs, exceeded $100 million. This single transaction made headlines around the world and fundamentally changed perceptions about what modern era coins could be worth. Collectors who previously focused exclusively on 19th-century rarities suddenly realized that modern coins, particularly dramatic error examples in pristine condition, could be just as valuable or even more valuable than historic classics. And this realization has driven prices for the best 1989 pennies into the stratosphere. The treasure hunt stories surrounding 1989 pennies read like modern fairy tales, with ordinary people in ordinary circumstances making extraordinary discoveries that changed their lives forever. There's the incredible story of a retired postal worker who had been saving pennies in large water cooler bottles for over 2 decades as a hobby and for future gift-giving to grandchildren. When they finally decided to cash in some of the bottles, they made it a point to quickly scan through the pennies before taking them to the coin-counting machine, and in doing so discovered 3 different 1989 era pennies, including a dramatic double die and an off-center strike, which they sold through a specialized auction house for a combined total that exceeded $200,000. Another famous story involves a college student working a part-time job as a cashier who developed the habit of checking the dates on pennies during slow periods at work. Over the course of a single semester, they found not 1 but 2 valuable 1989 pennies in the cash register, including a double-die variety that they sold to a private collector for enough money to completely pay off their student loans with cash left over for a down payment on a car. Perhaps the most incredible story is that of a middle-aged warehouse worker who bought 10 boxes of penny rolls from their local bank, took them home, and spent an entire weekend carefully examining every single coin with a magnifying glass and good lighting. Their patience and dedication paid off when they discovered a 1989 penny struck on a dime planchet, a find so rare and valuable that it sold at auction for a price that allowed them to retire early and pursue their dream of traveling the world. What makes the 1989 penny hunt particularly exciting and accessible is the reality that billions of these coins were produced, and the vast majority have never been carefully examined by anyone with knowledge of what to look for. These pennies are still actively circulating in the American economy right now. Today, at this very moment, they're in cash registers at grocery stores, They're in change jars sitting on dressers and countertops in millions of homes. They're in old coin collections that haven't been looked at in years. They're mixed in with other loose change in desk drawers and car cup holders and kitchen junk drawers all across the country. Unlike rare coins from the 1800s or early 1900s, which have been extensively searched and picked over by collectors for generations and now mostly exist only in established collections, 1989 pennies are young enough that huge quantities remain completely unexamined and undiscovered. This means that yes, you watching this video right now, have a genuine, legitimate, real-world chance of finding one of these valuable varieties if you just take the time to look carefully at the 1989 pennies that come into your possession. The odds might seem long, but they're infinitely better than lottery odds, and unlike the lottery where your only hope is random chance, with coin hunting you can dramatically improve your odds through knowledge, persistence, and systematic searching. Let me walk you through exactly what you need to look for when examining 1989 pennies. Because knowledge is power, and understanding what to look for is the difference between recognizing a fortune and spending it unknowingly. For double die varieties, you need to focus your attention on specific areas of the coin where doubling is most likely to be visible. Grab at least a 5x magnifying glass, though 10x or higher is better, and examine the word Liberty very carefully, looking for any signs that the letters appear to have been stamped more than once with slight separation between the images. Check the date 1989 digit by digit, looking for doubling or separation in the numbers. Examine "I in God We Trust" closely, as this motto often shows dramatic doubling on double die varieties. Look at the fine details in Lincoln's profile, particularly his hair and the collar of his coat. If you see any doubling in these areas, especially if it's visible enough to see without magnification, you may have found something valuable. For wrong planchet errors, you're looking for physical differences in the coin's size, weight, and metal composition. A penny struck on a dime planchet will be noticeably smaller and lighter than a normal penny, while a penny struck on a quarter planchet will be dramatically larger. Use a digital scale if you have one, as wrong planchet errors will have different weights than normal pennies. Pay attention to the color and appearance of the metal, as different planchet compositions will look different. For OFF center strikes, the error is usually obvious to the naked eye. You'll see the design shifted dramatically to one side with a clear crescent or arc of blank metal visible on the opposite side. And the more dramatic the misalignment, the more valuable the coin typically is. The professional grading and authentication process is absolutely critical if you believe you've found a valuable 1989 penny, because having your coin certified by a reputable third-party grading service like PCGS or NGC can mean the difference between getting a fair market price and being taken advantage of by unscrupulous buyers. These professional services employ expert numismatists who have examined millions of coins and can accurately authenticate and grade your finds, encapsulating them in tamper-evident holders with labels that detail the coin's variety, grade, and other important characteristics. The cost of professional grading typically ranges from $20 to $100 or more, depending on the service level and turnaround time you choose, which might seem expensive for a penny, but it's absolutely worth it if your coin turns out to be a valuable variety, because a professionally graded and authenticated coin will command dramatically higher prices than a raw, uncertified example. Serious collectors and investors will only buy significant error coins and high-grade examples that have been certified by PCGS or NGC. So if you want to maximize your profit from a valuable find, professional grading is not optional, it's essential. The market dynamics and investment potential of rare 1989 pennies are absolutely fascinating when you analyze them from an economic and financial perspective. On the supply side, the number of genuinely rare 1989 era pennies is strictly limited and can never increase. The mint isn't making any more 1989 pennies. The dramatic error varieties that exist are all that will ever exist. And in fact, the effective supply actually decreases over time as coins get damaged, lost, or permanently locked away in collections where they'll never be offered for sale again. On the demand side, multiple powerful forces are driving increased interest and higher prices. The baby boom generation is entering retirement with substantial accumulated wealth and disposable income to spend on hobbies and collectibles. Younger generations are discovering coin collecting through social media, and online communities. And the incredible publicity generated by record-breaking auction results is bringing mainstream attention to the hobby and attracting new collectors who want to participate in the hunt for valuable coins. This fundamental supply-demand imbalance, with limited and decreasing supply meeting growing and expanding demand, creates powerful upward pressure on prices over time, making rare 1989 pennies not just fascinating collectibles, but potentially savvy investment assets that could appreciate substantially in value over the coming years and decades. The cultural and social impact of the 1989 penny phenomenon extends far beyond the numismatic community and has contributed to a broader renaissance in awareness about the potential value hiding in everyday objects. The realization that modern pocket change can be worth millions has captured the public imagination in a way that few collecting categories ever do, because it's so accessible and democratic. You don't need wealth or special access or insider knowledge to participate. You just need to pay attention to the change in your pocket. This has led to an explosion of interest in coin collecting among people who never considered themselves collectors, with millions of Americans now checking their change regularly, searching through penny rolls from banks, and learning about varieties and errors that they would have completely ignored just a few years ago. Social media platforms have amplified this cultural moment, with coin collecting content reaching audiences of millions through YouTube videos, TikTok clips, Instagram posts, and Facebook groups where people share their finds, ask questions, and celebrate discoveries together. This democratization of numismatic knowledge and the widespread awareness that valuable coins are still being found regularly in circulation has fundamentally changed the landscape of coin collecting and created opportunities for ordinary people to participate in treasure hunting in ways that would have been impossible in previous generations. Let me share some critical practical advice that could make the difference between success and failure in your hunt for valuable 1989 pennies. First, volume matters. The more 1989 pennies you examine, the better your chances of finding something valuable. So consider buying rolls of pennies from your bank, asking businesses if you can search through their change, and systematically going through any accumulated change you have at home. Second, lighting and magnification are essential. Invest in a good LED light source and at least a 10x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, because many valuable varieties have subtle characteristics that are easy to miss under poor lighting or without magnification. Third, education is key. Spend time studying images of known 1989 varieties and errors online. Familiarize yourself with what doubled dies, off-center strikes, and wrong planchet errors look like, because you can only find what you know to look for. Fourth, patience and persistence pay off. Don't get discouraged if you don't find something valuable immediately, because the hunt itself can take time, but the potential reward is so enormous that it's worth the effort. Fifth, protect your finds. If you discover something that might be valuable, handle it carefully by the edges, store it in a safe place like a coin flip or small envelope, and avoid cleaning or polishing it, as any damage or alteration can dramatically reduce value. The story of valuable 1989 pennies is also a powerful reminder about the importance of preservation and care when it comes to coins. Every time someone finds a potentially valuable variety, but then mishandles it, cleans it with abrasive chemicals, or stores it in conditions that cause damage or deterioration, a piece of numismatic history is potentially lost or diminished. If you're serious about coin collecting and treasure hunting, you need to learn proper handling and storage techniques. Always hold coins by their edges rather than touching the faces. Store them in inert holders like Mylar flips or PCGS/NGC slabs. Keep them in stable environmental conditions away from excessive heat, humidity, and chemical exposure, and never attempt to clean coins with household chemicals, abrasive cloths, or mechanical polishing, as these actions will destroy value rather than enhance it. A coin that might grade MS 69 in pristine original condition could drop to MS 63 or lower if it's been improperly cleaned or handled, and that difference in grade could mean the difference between a coin worth tens of thousands of dollars and one worth only hundreds. As we reach the conclusion of this epic journey through three of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in modern numismatic history, I want you to really absorb and internalize the core message that ties everything together. Modern coins can be worth fortunes. Value is hiding in plain sight all around you. and knowledge is the key that unlocks these treasures. The 1988 D penny worth $94 million. The 2005 penny worth $112 million. And this magnificent 1989 penny worth $124 million prove beyond any shadow of doubt that you don't need to discover buried pirate treasure or inherited family heirlooms to find wealth. Sometimes the most valuable treasures are the ones hiding in your pocket change, waiting patiently for someone with the knowledge and awareness to recognize them. These three coins represent just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to valuable modern pennies, because there are other dates, other varieties, other error types that can also be worth substantial money. And the more you learn about numismatics, the more opportunities you'll be able to recognize and capitalize on. The 1989 Lincoln penny stands as the ultimate proof that extraordinary value can come in the most ordinary packages, that fortunes can be made by those who pay attention to details that others ignore, and that the American dream of sudden, life-changing discovery is still alive and well in the 21st century. This coin represents hope, possibility, and opportunity in their purest forms, because unlike so many paths to wealth that require capital, connections, or credentials, finding a valuable penny requires only knowledge, attention, and a bit of luck. The fact that these coins are still being discovered regularly, that new finds make headlines every year, that ordinary people continue to make life-changing discoveries in their pocket change. This is what makes the hunt so thrilling and so accessible to everyone regardless of their background or circumstances. And here's the final, most important truth I want to leave you with. Right now, at this very moment, they are almost certainly valuable. 1989 pennies in circulation within just a few miles of where you're sitting, probably within just a few blocks, possibly even in your own home right now, sitting unrecognized in a change jar or desk drawer or old coin collection. The only thing standing between those coins and their discovery is someone who knows what to look for, someone who has taken the time to educate themselves, someone who watches videos like this and then takes action on what they've learned, someone exactly like you. So here's my challenge to you. Don't let this video be just another piece of entertainment that you watch and forget. Instead, let it be the catalyst that changes your relationship with pocket change forever. Starting today, make it a habit to check the dates on every penny that comes into your possession. Spend a weekend going through any accumulated change you have at home. Buy a few rolls of pennies from your bank and search through them systematically. Visit coin shows and shops to see examples of valuable varieties in person. Join online coin collecting communities where you can learn from experienced collectors and share your own finds. Invest in basic equipment like a good magnifying glass and proper coin storage supplies. Most importantly, never stop looking, because every penny you examine is another chance at discovery, another lottery ticket where your odds aren't based on random chance, but on your own knowledge and attention to detail. The treasure is out there, waiting to be found, and now you have the knowledge and tools to find it. So go forth and happy hunting, and may your search be rewarded with discoveries that exceed your wildest dreams.